I'm at 10. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am Marky Jackson. For all those that don't know me, I work at Sysdig. I am part of the SIG contributor experience as well as SIG release. I am also one of the shadows for the 117 release. I thank you all for being here today. Hope everybody is doing well. Let's go ahead and get started. Can I get a note taker? I think I've already got my note taker. George, that's you, right? Thank you. I am going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start right into this with our release updates from Guinevere. Guinevere, take it away.
Hi, good morning. As per usual, I am the 117 release lead. And this week is a little bit of calm before the storm. The big thing that is happening this week is that everybody who is filing an enhancement must update, must open docs pull request by Friday, which is tomorrow. So please do that. That is kind of the big deal. Code freeze is coming Thursday next week. That is the 14th of November, I believe. Yes, Thursday, November 14th, end of day Pacific. Code freeze. Anything that gets merged after code freeze will have to be cherry picked into the release. Let's see. We released the first true beta this week, Tuesday. Everyone check it out. And it is going to be really exciting. Let's see. We are also all getting ready for KubeCon. We will have some really exciting face-to-face meetings at KubeCon on the release team, so prepare for that. Other than that, we seem to be on track. Get in your docs. That's it.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody on the release team for such an awesome job. We are going to go ahead and go right into our SIG updates. We're going to switch it around a little. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Tim Pepper.
All right, let me just share my slides. They are linked in the meeting notes. Hopefully people can see these. Yes, okay. So we've just kind of relatively recently, I think the last meeting maybe was the first one where we really started getting into the working group in addition to SIGs. This is sort of a new thing in the community meeting. I'm representing working group LTS. LTS stands for long-term support. It may be a phrase that people are familiar with from other places in the open source ecosystem. We've tried to keep an open mind in the working group around how we approach the topic of support so as to not sort of pigeonhole ourselves into saying Kubernetes is going to do LTS as everybody knows it, but rather look at what our user base wants in terms of support and try to analyze that and see if there are gaps in what we're doing today and provide a variety of potential solutions and then hopefully work towards consensus on some specific changes. So since this is our first time coming to the meeting, instead of talking about what we did in last cycle, I do want to give a little bit of a mention of what we did this past year. So in Q4 of last year, so coming up on right about a year ago, the working group was actually formed. So there's a link there in the notes to some of the discussion that happened leading up to the GitHub PR merging. And then also we established our charter and sort of like I was talking about a moment ago, we were trying to come at this open as a working group to discuss the problem space and potential solutions, open-minded, open possibilities, as opposed to saying like, let's go implement LTS as everybody knows it, because that's actually not a actual specific thing. One of the things we started out with initially was doing a survey. So end of last year, beginning of this year, we had 334 people respond to our survey, and we're trying to get at a spectrum of cluster operators, clusters users, Kubernetes contributors, as well as the vendor, distributors, hosted offering providers, and see what they think about the state of support, how they consume artifacts into clusters, how they upgrade clusters, how often. One of the major findings that we had there was that a large portion of the respondents were running releases at or near end of support. And that was something we sort of speculated was possibly the case because we were hearing these sort of rumbles of people wanting longer support. If people are asking for a longer support lifetime, that probably implies they're having some type of issue getting off of an older release to the newer one before what they've deployed falls out of support. So we collected a variety of data on that. It was actually kind of bimodal. There are a lot of people who are successfully moving forward fairly rapidly, which is good to see. We want to see agile, sort of cloud native forward motion. The other things that we've done in this area around kind of getting going and getting discussion going is that each of the past 2 KubeCons we've had a BOF. There's a link in the notes to the YouTube recordings of that. We'll be having a session at the Contributor Summit in a week and a half also to go into some more detail on things. And for people who maybe aren't as familiar with working groups versus SIGs own code. They're listed in owners files as reviewers and approvers of code. They have some code they're responsible for. Working groups less so. It's about understanding a problem space and working towards potential solutions that then get implemented maybe. So we've done a lot of discussion then. The things that we've been talking about, a lot of these I think I've alluded to already, but the release cadence, how often the project is making releases. There's people who want it faster, there's people who want it slower. And then per release, what is the support lifetime? There's a desire to have it longer, but doing it longer comes with cost. We also have to think about upgrade scenarios across that. How are people upgrading their clusters, moving to newer releases? What problems are they having today? What help would they like to see from the community? And then within that, version skew and deprecation policies. If you're moving between things, how hard is it to keep your componentry of your cluster coherent? And do you have things that you depend on that just sort of disappear underneath you? A portion of that too is API stability. There's configuration as API. We have REST APIs. There's a number of different components of what is API stability that then also ties into conformance and testing. So a big, broad set of things that we're discussing. So some things that we're looking at in the coming cycle over the next few months, more discussion on those topics, but one of the things we have bubbling out of this is a KEP, potentially. We've had a number of potential proposals that are relatively complex and span changing the way upgrade might happen or the way the release cadence happens or the support lifetime or all of them together. But it's very complicated to try to reason what that might look like and have something that's truly implementable today or incrementally implementable. So this draft KEP that we have going on is fairly simple. It's proposing that we add one more quarter's worth of calendar time of support. Today, a given Kubernetes release is supported for 9 months-ish. The proposal is to support it for 12 months. And there's a little bit of fuzz in there and some things that are still under discussion. This is a draft discussion. As I mentioned, we'll have another session at KubeCon. This is a Contrib Summit on Monday. I believe it's in like the 11 o'clock hour Monday morning. And then working groups are supposed to be time limited. So one of the things that we need to decide is whether we want to, should continue into 2020, what things we would pursue if and when we were to carry on forward. And do we do another survey? Because the data findings that we had are specific to sort of 1.13 releases and earlier, and we measured a lot of people on 1.9 releases and earlier. Obviously, now that we're up around 117, that data is quite old. We're moving forward fast. So it'd be interesting to see how people have changed since then. So how these plans affect you. Hopefully the main thing that people see coming out of this iteratively is higher levels of stability, compatibility, quality. Even though a working group doesn't own code and isn't necessarily driving specific changes in code, some of the discussion here has turned into specific issues and PRs around better documenting our current version skew and deprecation policies, how we move features through alpha, beta, stable, and how we do our patch releases today, and then ideas around how any of these might change going forward in response to user demand. Also, improving API stability. I mentioned configuration, REST APIs, the provider abstractions as well, CNI, CSI, CRI, those types of things, moving more of these to stable. And then an interesting subportion of that, there's a link to a KEP there. I've mentioned testing and conformance. Right now, conformance testing by default requires that you enable beta APIs. The Kubernetes project is relatively new still and relatively immature in some ways, and we need to push more of it forward towards stable and not have people depending on beta, much less alpha APIs for the standard running of a conformant Kubernetes cluster. Things we need from you. Speaking of that survey, we're continuing to look for more input from cluster end users and operators on how they actually do things, what support needs they have, how they upgrade and manage their clusters. And on this API stability front, every SIG out there could use help in moving their features forward so that things don't languish and sit at alpha or beta longer than necessary. So contributing to code, doing code reviews, using the features, testing them, giving feedback, all very valuable. Related KEPs, I think I've mentioned both of these too. The one that's currently in an implementable state that Jordan Liggett's put forward around making sure that we can run conformance without beta features, and then this draft KEP from the working group that's under discussion around moving from 9 months to 1 year of support. How you can contribute, since this is largely about discussion, show up to our meeting, discuss. We would love that. Show up to Contrib Summit and get engaged in the discussion. And if we do a survey in 2020, keep an eye out for that and respond to it. We would love that. And then our standard, where do you find us? Like all of the SIGs and working groups are all listed in the SIG list out on the Kubernetes community repo. We're there as well. We've got a README, we've got our charter, we've got a Slack channel, a Google group. We do have the standard regular biweekly meetings. They're up on Zoom, on YouTube, and all of that, like any other SIG. And that's what I wanted to share with the group today.
Thank you very much for that, Tim. Very informative, as always. Bart, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
I will go ahead and turn it over to you.
Perfect. So, hi everyone, I'm Bart Smikla, and I will try to update you about the CaseinFront working group. And I think that the most important things are we did an onboarding session for the new contributors. Actually, the 80 people came, and this was a result for like a multiple people asking for help on Twitter and multiple other places. And actually, we didn't expect that many people being interested in help. So that's, I think, kind of important thing. We also started like a process of dividing efforts of our working group into subgroups, which will be responsible for the smaller chunks of the work. And every subgroup will have one mentor who is like currently more experienced, and multiple mentees from the people who want to help, especially the newcomers and new contributors. And the deadline to finish this work is set for the next week. So I hope that after next week, every subgroup will start working on their tasks. And I was nominated as a co-chair of CaseinFront working group, but I don't know if it's important enough, but it's here. And I think that one of the biggest things we managed to do is we created and tested solution to give users via Google Groups permissions to do to create, like to manage and create the namespaces inside the new infrastructure. What does it mean is that every project which will have its own namespace in our new infrastructure can be accessed and managed currently by the people who are members of the working groups, which are managed with our groups.yaml file. So it means that we can give people permissions and we can give people access to the new cluster. So we are very, very close to starting moving the projects itself to the new cluster. And the last thing is related to the container image promoter, which actually moved to use so-called thin manifests. And this is kind of security hardening, and the credentials are locked down under the stricter owners file. And that's what we did the last cycle. And what are our plans for the upcoming cycle is to actually document a little bit better our current state of the world of our efforts. So every subgroup, the first task would be to create the single document with the state of the world of that particular effort. And in 3 or 4 weeks, we want to have one, like a design document with what we did, what we still need to do, and what is the current state of the world. And I think that it will help, not only us, but everybody to see how further we are in this whole process of moving the infrastructure to the community-owned one. And we are still working, and we will be working. I hope that the next cycle will finish like a solution for backups and auditioning for container image promoter. And this will be this is actually the last bit of things which we need to do to make it fully working. And I hope that we will start moving the smaller projects to the new infrastructure. And actually, how these plans affect you, it's because we are starting very soon to move the projects to the new infrastructure. Probably we will actually need some help or guidance with the projects from the 6 who owns the projects itself, but this is not yet the time to do so. But I think that in the next month we will start this process. So that's the only thing which can affect others, I think, at this point. And how you can contribute there, I put some interesting links from the onboarding sessions with the recording, and inside the notes from the recording, I put a lot of interesting links for newcomers. There's multiple, I think 20 or so links which can be useful for new contributors, not only to our working group, but the new contributors itself. And playlists from our recording, currently open issues, and the state of the world of the container image promoter at this point. And where you can find us on the Slack channel, our Google group, and feel free to find us there to talk with us. That's my update for now.
Thank you very much, Bart. I really appreciate that. Very informative. Okay, let's go ahead and go right into announcements. So for all that don't know, this will be the last community meeting until December 5th. That means no meetings because KubeCon and Thanksgiving, which also happy KubeCon and happy Thanksgiving. I look forward to seeing everybody that can make it there. Don't forget to register for the Contributor Summit. And we will go into shout outs. Chris Short gave a shout out to George and Jeffy for getting him all set up for streaming community meetings. So helpful and kind, even when I forgot things. And Chris doesn't forget anything. Chris Blecker gave a shout out to Leggett and Ben the Elder for getting us upgraded to Go 113. That was a huge effort. Paris also gave a shout out to everyone on the KubeCon planning stretch, especially the wonderful Contributor Summit events team. Woohoo! That is all we have. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns before we wrap up this meeting? All righty then. Well, I will give everybody back some time. That was a very fast meeting. I think one of our fastest. Look forward to seeing everybody at KubeCon. For those that can make it, for those that can't, we will see you online at December 5th at the next community meeting. Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.